Hello again. I'm doing another random unscripted thing with Crash Bandicoot's Remastered again. Mostly because there's a lot of stuff that I forgot to talk about in the first episode, and I wanted to do a part 2 of it to fill up the rest of my thoughts and opinions and hopes for the Crash Bandicoot Trilogy Remastered, and I've written some notes down so I can remember it all. So here we are. The first part that I have written down is improvements. Yeah, the whole deal about a remastering is to improve it, and I've pretty much forgotten all about that in the first part. So, what can this remastered trilogy do to improve the classic trilogy? Now that's kind of interesting, because with Crash Bandicoot 2 and 3, it's always been that heated debate of which one of those two is the superior Crash game from those trilogy. Because in Crash 2, there was a lot of solid gameplay and such, and Crash 3, of course, I grew up on it, there was some of that stuff, but the other half of it was filled with vehicle levels. So, I don't know, I think 2 and 3 are fine. They could use some minor tweaks here and there, but I think the one that deserves the most improvements is the first Crash game, mostly for difficulty and controls. Now, of course, people who have played the first Crash will pretty much know that that game didn't support analog sticks. It was all about the D-pads back then. So, yeah, the game feels very stiff with its gameplay, and I'm sure they'll improve that because, I mean, every PlayStation game uses the analog sticks to move characters around. And on difficulty, yeah, Crash 1 is not an easy game, especially if you're trying to get to the 100% ending, where you have to collect all of the gems and not die. Checkpoints don't count. That was later incorporated into 2 and 3, where it's like, oh, you hit a checkpoint, it still counts all your boxes. Well, not in the first game. You had to do it all in one go, so in some levels in the first game, it's not that difficult, but then there are other levels like Slippery Climb and Cortex Power. That's when the collecting can get really aggravating. It would be nice if they could improve the difficulty in the first game, have it be more in the middle and have it, gradually become harder as the level progresses. So we don't want anything that's super hard and aggravating like Super Mario Brothers The Lost Levels, and we don't want anything that's super easy like Sonic Colors, just more in the middle. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. Yeah, next is voice casting revisited. Now, this is kind of interesting because I look back at my thoughts video and I have a segment talking about all the different voice acting, blah blah blah. But yet, I look back at the classic games and they didn't really have that much voice acting. Like, the first game was done by one guy, and the only characters that got the most line of dialogues was Dr. Cortex and Embryo. Then the second game, they added in Dr. Engine and Coco Bandicoot, and then the third game we had somewhat of a full-fledged voice cast, where every main character has a speaking line, minus Crash and Coco. So the whole idea of getting the old gang back together for old time's sake, yeah, I'm sure Activision will make an attempt to reunite the original actors, Brendan O'Brien, Clancy Brown, everybody else. All except for, I think the only ones that are not around anymore is the voice of Dingodile, who passed away years ago. So, oh well, it's the best they could do. It's like with the DuckTales remaster again, yeah, bringing that game up again, where they were able to get most of the original cast from the DuckTales TV show, which is really surprising because back then Alan Young was in his 90s and he was still pulling off the Scrooge McDuck voice in his very old age. As for returning actors that I would like to see, one of them, well, obviously one of them is Clancy Brown, the original voice for Dr. Cortex and Uka Uka. I'd like to see Brendan O'Brien coming back as the voice of Crash and Dr. Engine. Of course, he's voiced various other characters from the past games, even though they don't really have much to say. But yeah, just bring him back as Crash Bandicoot and Dr. Engine, as well as give him that same voice filter for Engine, that whole half-robotic voice, because that was always cool. The other actor I'd like to see come back is Mel Winkler, the voice of Aku Aku, because he's the guy that really defines the character, making him the mystical and powerful witch doctor that he used to be. And then the other one is Michael Einsing, I think that's his name, who was the voice of Dr. Entropy for almost every Crash game, with the exception of Wrath of Cortex. That was done by Corey Burton, who did a very weird take on the character. But yeah, for Entropy, that was always a very cool character from the games, even though they really don't use him that much. I think the only time he had somewhat of a bigger role was in Crash 2 Entrance, where instead of Dr. Cortex as the main villain, we had Dr. Entropy. So yeah, that's one thing I'd like to see them expand upon, give the characters some more, I don't know, give them more development, have a little bit more screen time, maybe add in a few new lines here and there. But yeah, still have them act as the way they used to, and not following what Titans and Mutants did to the characters. The idea of remastering all three games is still pretty vague because of the Sony press conference. All they said was, "Oh, we're gonna remake the trilogy from the ground up." And that was it. We really didn't get any info on that. I think a friend of mine told me that the idea of the remastering is going to be something like the Final Fantasy VII remake, and I can see it like that. And then somebody was telling me that the remastering series will be coming out in 2017, which is next year. And I really find that hard to believe. It's like, yeah, trying to remake 3 games from scratch? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's gonna take more than a year for it to come out. I'm still betting that it's gonna come out in 2018 or something later. Anything, anywhere not in 2017. Although there is a lot of stuff coming out in 2017, but let's not get into that because we'll also be here all day. One last thing that I can think about of talking about the remastering is that I hope that this remastering 3 games is all in one compilation, just like what they did with the Kingdom Hearts HD collections, Jack and Daxter collection, Ratchet and Clank, those kind of games. Because one of my fears for this is that, Crash Bandicoot's still owned by Activision, blah, blah, blah. And especially with that recent stunt that they did, it really scares me. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, hey, here's Modern Warfare HD, the game that everybody wants. Wanna play it? Well, too bad. You gotta buy the new Call of Duty game first, because we're not gonna sell it separately. So yeah, that's one of my fears about this compilation. Well, I hope it's a compilation. If they sell these games separately, then I think that's kind of a bit of a dick move off of Activision. That, or they're just gonna bundle it with the new Skylanders game because, oh, it has Crash Bandicoot in it. Or maybe they'll just bundle it with the new Call of Duty game because, well, I wouldn't be surprised if Activision tried to get Crash Bandicoot into a Call of Duty game. Hoi. Okay, I think I'm finally done talking about the remastering idea. I'm sure it's gonna still take a while, even though some people say, no, it's coming out next year. Although I'm pretty sure they're confusing that release date with the new Skylanders game. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about the remastering. I'm done talking about it on YouTube. I really don't want this to become a vlog series, because otherwise it's going to take up too much of my time. And I've already delayed Forgotten Media episodes more than enough already, especially when I'm this close in reaching the 75th episode special. So that's all I'm going to say, and yeah, bye.